I was apprehensive to make this video because, well, for one, this is not a comedy channel, and I know you guys aren't subscribed to hear the same Hollywood gossip that you hear everywhere else. And also because the theme of my channel is to expose the evil nature of this world, you know, and to shed light on the fact that we have now officially entered a new world order. And if you watch my channel, you know that I'm not a fan of most popular entertainment, and I have little to no respect for most so-called stars in the celebrity culture. But if there was one exception regarding my attitude towards most celebrities, it was Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald was like the one celebrity that I actually liked. You know, I mean, I suppose maybe there's a handful, but, you know, I've always maintained a certain sentiment for the comedy of Norm Macdonald. If you ask me, he was the world's funniest person. And even since I've been saved, I've continued to enjoy Norm's comedy as a bit of a guilty pleasure. Guilty because, if you didn't know, Norm would sometimes tell jokes and stories that were equally as raunchy as any other comedian. You know, pretty much just as bad as you can imagine. And then on the other hand, the majority of his comedy was usually pretty clean. But either way, for better or worse, he never failed to make me laugh until my stomach hurt. And I love to laugh. And by the way, there's some really funny Christian comedians too, like Jeff Allen and Nazareth and Michael Jr., to name a few. But I'm sorry, there will never be another Norm Macdonald. And now usually when I see headlines about the passing of celebrities, it really doesn't move me at all, to be honest. You know, I mean, I'll sometimes feel slightly sad, you know, about the thought of where they might spend eternity. But I don't usually care about celebrities any more than strangers on the street. But when Norm Macdonald died, that was a different story, you know, because it actually kind of hit me. It made me kind of sad, you know, and for some reason I just keep thinking about him. And I'm actually going to miss him. I mean, I actually called my brother before I made this to see if he thought it would be a good idea for a video, you know, I mean, considering how much this topic differs from my usual content. But instead of being able to get to the point, you know, we just spent 20 minutes laughing and recalling all the times that Norm's comedy left us both in tears. You know, and the amount of time in our childhoods that were spent with big old smiles on our faces in response to his comedy. And I know that a lot of my subscribers have matured beyond the point of being entertained by things like secular comedy, you know. But it is what it is. I mean, even as a Christian, I can honestly say that I appreciate the laughter and all the smiles that this guy always gave me. Because I think that comedy is a good thing. I mean, look around. Speech is being censored left and right. You know, our rulers have established this new normal where everything is offensive now and you're not allowed to say anything. You know, it's all hate speech and feelings trump facts, you know, and telling the truth is real controversial now, and telling jokes, again, it's hate speech. And I think that when you consider comedy in this social context, you'll begin to understand that there's actually a value in it. Because in order to maintain the rights that are promised by our Constitution, we need to be allowed to offend each other. And we need to be able to make jokes about painful or controversial things, you know, and we need people who are willing to say what everybody else is thinking, but too afraid to say, you know. It's what keeps us free, and it helps our morale, in my opinion. And nobody was better at roasting woke culture than Norm Macdonald. And I'm about to show you some examples of this. And yeah, I know he's a secular comedian, but as such, you know, he was in a position to destroy a lot of woke narratives from a public platform, and in a way that really made people think.
Now in this cancel culture and everything, I have to say, I no longer take that position with O.J. Simpson. He was found not guilty by a jury of his peers. I accept that. I see him as the greatest rusher. That's all he's guilty of to me, is the greatest rusher in the history of the NFL. Yep. Maybe I was the greatest rusher to judgment.
Now, you know what my friend told me? He goes, you gotta get woke, you know? Because I'm not woke. I was trying to this. It was a man, but it was clearly a lady. So the man says to me, because I'm Christian, the man says to me, how can you believe in an invisible man in the sky? I go, well, I believe you're a man. Ain't that far a jump. Shouldn't she have to believe what I say? Or? Anyways, that's the old me. I got my woke jokes. I wrote them on my magic phone. I just started today. But nothing funnier than woke jokes. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody laughs. But maybe I can just remember it off the top of my head. Here it is. First of all, with woke jokes, you gotta remember one thing. They're not funny. But they're important. And they're said with a great deal of either anger or, So here it is. Hey! Listen, I don't know what's happening to us as Americans, but there's some things that are happening that are wrong. And not who we are as Americans. Now, you take the southern border, and what's happening at the southern border? Well, that is not who we are as America. You may not know this, but there at the southern border right now, today, there are children as young as 2 or 3 years old that are being separated from the people that bought them from the parents or the cartel or whatever, and the kid gets through, and then the cartel guy can't get through, and a deal's a deal. It's not who we are as Americans. Ripped from the arms.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, man, these days with your comedy, do you feel like you're walking on eggshells at all? Do you feel more like nervous about stuff you tweet and stuff you say just because of the climate we're in and everything that's happened?
Yeah, like we're gonna go do stand-up right now. It's mostly trying out new stuff. You don't have the freedom to just talk and free associate and then, carve it back from there. Because usually the process would be you go way over the line.
Yeah.
And then you bring it, and then people go, we hate you. And then you take away all the parts where they hate you, and then you're left with the stuff that's not, that's on the line but not over it.
Is your starting point a little bit more sort of tamer these days?
Oh, yeah. It's very calculated and thought out. And
does that hurt your act though?
yeah, it's way less funny.
Is that right?
Other than it being not as funny, it's wonderful. It doesn't hurt anyone's feelings anymore, but virtually no one laughs. So it's a trade-off. If I could say one thing about the real heroes of the country, which I believe are the teachers, I don't believe they're the real heroes. I just spoke again. I think the real heroes are the real heroes. Teachers, they get good press though, because people often say to me, who the real heroes are? I go, are they the real heroes? They go, no. I go, oh, they're the teachers. It's counterintuitive that it doesn't seem like a heroic job, but yes. First of all, if you're a teacher, you get the same vacations as a child. You get, 4 months a year off. My vacation? I get almost no time off. Over 48 weeks a year. 4 weeks a year I get off. What about you? You're not one of those teachers, right? But listen, if I call a person gay, that ain't no insult.
It's a good thing nowadays.
Yeah, if you say it's an insult, you're the homophobe, not me.
Correct. Supreme Court says so.
That's absolutely.
We've got one.
Do you think the LGBT community? First of all, do you even know what it stands for?
Yeah.
What is that for?
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender.
Is it? I don't know if you're right, but
I mean, you can make up whatever acronyms you want.
Well, you got a computer, you can look it up.
I'm not going to look up what LGBT means.
Well, somebody
I know what
can tell
LGBT
us
means.
I don't think that's what it means. Because B, all B's are G.
All bisexuals are gay?
Well, yeah. Obviously, right?
Well, they have gay components they can be attracted
all
to.
All B's are G. All L's are B. I'm sorry.
You're like a teacher. Now, are you a teacher? What do you teach? What grade? What grade? What grade? No, but what grade? Not so easy when it's the other way around. It's always easy to ask the questions. The real heroes are the students. I actually have to answer the question. Now, what grade do you teach? 9 through 12. So you need a grade 13 education. Now you're the real hero. No, you're the real hero. No, I'm just kidding. You're the real hero.
It'd be good to get the. See, I think we should get the homicide out of the White House and get like a fresh start, because we don't want any more murderers.
I think we should just go on to the next question.
Oh.
Who are the murderers?
Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, you know, we're not allowed to, you're not allowed to put out no accusations without.
That's a little
Charlie.
too far.
That's the way it does work.
Let's just go on to the next question.
Yeah.
This is not my week. What can I tell you?
Oh, it's not mine either, and I'm being very nice, okay? Be a good boy. Now, Norm.
Did you never hear that?
No. Listen, we don't need
I
to
don't
talk
want to get
about
into this,
that.
and I don't want to hear it, and this is not the place to make those accusations, and you're supposed to be funny. Let's get on to the
Right,
next question.
exactly. So get with it. There you go.
You're going to get a lot of trouble for this segment.
I'm not.
What?
I'm not.
I love everybody. You know what I mean? Without love, what do we got? I don't care if a guy's a guy, a girl, a guy, girl. I couldn't care less. I love them all.
You're the bee.
Huh?
You're the bee.
No, I'm a person that is so tolerant that I would have sex with an L, a G, a B, or a T. Isn't that nice? But I would not have sex with a straight person.
Did you see how upset she is? So you actually feel you're the real hero? See, I think you've disqualified yourself a little. Because I believe real heroes don't think they are. Because when you hear the real heroes, they go, how the did you run into that fire and pull the guy in? You're a hero. And they go, no, it's the teachers. Not me. I'm a little scared now. I gotta go lie down. Gotta pull the guy out of a fire.
This is a live show.
Not for nothing, Norm, but you have been properly chastised by Barbara. So I'm now going to ask the next
I
question.
thought it was a matter of record.
Shut up!
Shut up! Look,
Okay.
let me do this, okay?
I'll tell you what's a matter of record. You will not be invited back if you don't shut up. All right, now. Let's talk football.
All right, manslaughter. First of all, I just start with how much I love Caitlyn Jenner and how courageous I think she is, and all transgenders, you know, are courageous, you know, except the ones that are serial killers. I don't care for them. I'm torn actually with the because I love the part of them that is transgender so much. There's only been 2 in the history of the world, you know.
Transgender people or transgender serial killers?
Transgender serial killers. Ed Gein, and there was another fellow. Lady. And so I'm torn because the transgender part of them I love so much, and the serial killer part of them, I mean, I don't care for that. You know, I mean, you know, let me just go out on a limb here and say, I am against psychosexual sadists who slay people.
But it's a difficult balance because on the other hand,
I love transgenders so much.
Yeah.
I love them.
Well,
You know,
no-
if I could have a transgender every day for the rest of my life, I'd be a happy man.
As long as they're not straight.
Yeah, I don't want no straight people. I don't like straight people.
There you go. You heard it here first, folks. Norm,
Everybody but straight people.
Everybody
I
but
love.
straight people.
Straight people, I got no use for.
Well,
is this odd?
I could
Has this been an odd interview for you?
Okay, so those were funny clips, and I think they did well to serve the point that comedy is a good weapon against propaganda. So I think it's noteworthy for that reason, but that's not actually why I'm making this video. You see, the reason that I've felt sad since the death of Norm Macdonald is because I'm kind of concerned about the spiritual condition that he was in at the time of his death. And a lot of people don't know this, but Norm at least claimed to be a devout Christian. Now, frankly, I kind of doubt his conversion. I mean, based on the lewd nature of a lot of his comedy, you know, and I mean, he said some really bad stuff. And plus, he has some questionable positions on faith. But, you know, it is a fact that he would openly profess to being a Christian. And as somebody that's kept up with what Norm Macdonald's been putting out, it seemed to me that, you know, he was really searching for answers in his final years. And you're about to see a few clips of Norm saying some truly profound things in regard to truth and God. And it's well known that despite his humorous persona, Norm was a really intelligent and well-read guy. And in his later years, he said some things that to me demonstrate, you know, some level of wisdom. And I want to share that with you now.
You get a lot of attention on Twitter sphere for being open about your religious views. What are they?
I'm a Christian. It's not
Devout?
not stylish to say now.
No, are you devout?
Yeah.
You believe in the Lord?
Yes, I do.
You think you're going somewhere when it ends?
I don't believe it, but you know, what people don't understand about faith is that you have to choose it. You know what I mean? They think that you believe it, but you have to choose it.
So you choose to have faith?
Yes. And when people try to tell me that God is not important, but that this nonsense is important, I couldn't disagree more.
This nonsense being life.
Not being life, being the tiny gossip of life. Like to me, saying I'm proud to be Asian, you may as well say I'm proud to have a green shirt. I don't know what you're so proud of. So I think as far as the question of God goes, I wish that science, which is supposed to explore these things, refuses to explore the fundamental question that is of interest not only to religious people, but intensely to atheists as well. They spend a lot of time thinking about something they don't care about, or they pretend they don't care about. Do you think there's a God? That science should spend all their time. I mean, they spend time trying to find new galaxies, as if that's important. Since God's an unproven thing, just a hypothesis at this point, I think it would be good to study it.
Well, but it can't in the scientific process. There has to be something there. How could you even go about? I mean, they've gone through space. They didn't find God floating around. How could you possibly test it scientifically? They just say it's unknowable. It's beyond our area of what we can know. Right? It's a belief. It's a faith.
But the scientific method, first of all, the scientific method always begins with intuition. Always. Einstein used intuition. He did not study things objectively and find things. He was struck with something and then followed that notion that he had, or whatever you call that. I call it intuition. You could put divine roots to it if you wanted to too, but that's how important things are discovered. And obviously, there is an enormous intuition amongst every person that has ever lived that God exists.
That means you believe you're going somewhere. What is faith? But I have faith.
Yeah, the same way that you believe. There's a lot of things I have faith, but I don't really believe in DNA. Like if I was on a jury and a guy was predicted that his DNA was on this cigarette. I go, I don't know what DNA is.
So
Like-
you don't have faith in that?
No, I don't have faith in science. You don't need evidence. And if in a court of law, you certainly don't need evidence. You don't need a body. You don't need to find a dead body. If something, you know, if all things point to something, I don't know. I have very strong belief in intuition, and I just find it interesting that something that everyone believes, some people pretend not to. I just find that very, very interesting. That's all.
It's not everyone, then. It's yeah. I think that's
Like, for instance, I'll tell you this. For instance, if you see an atheist, you will never see an atheist argue that God doesn't exist because the tenets of Scientology are absurd. They will always pick Christianity. So it's very interesting that they choose the God that they decide doesn't exist, which means really they're choosing the God they think exists.
No, I don't think that's the case. If you read some atheists, they'll say that Zeus doesn't exist. That, I mean, the Christian God doesn't exist. That any of the gods you can think of don't exist. Or better yet, they'll say, I mean, maybe strong atheists will say that, but the intellectually more honest ones might say there's just no evidence that they exist, and since there is no concrete evidence, why bother living your life that way?
Well, here's the thing. Science has only proven maybe, I think, 4 things in the history of science. So that's why there's a theory of evolution. Now, I could say to you if I wanted to that it is a theory because they haven't proven it. But I believe it.
They use theory differently in science.
Really?
Well, think about it. Haven't scientists always been wrong? Like they used to think the sun went around the earth. Everybody say, hey, that's scientist. Well, he's so smart. We'll give him a white coat.
Other science refuted it.
Right. The law.
But scientists will believe that, you know, it is 99.9% sure, given that there is evolution, but they're always open to new evidence, and they have to be. And, you know, and when you talk about Copernicus or...
Well, I don't know if they're open to new evidence. When I hear Stephen Hawking say there is no God, I go, what kind of scientist is that? I mean, I heard him say that. I heard him say there is no God, it's a fairy tale. That's not a scientist to me.
Well, that's one scientist. So the scientific community is everybody.
Stephen Hawking. That's the preeminent physicist in the entire world, is saying something out of obvious prejudice.
I've never got the answer to the one question, which is why? Why Connecticut children? Why? Why a bomber in Boston? Because if there is a God,
Yeah.
he's omnipotent.
Yes.
If he's omnipotent, he could prevent it.
Yes.
Why didn't he prevent it?
I don't know, man, but you gotta
I don't
stop
get it.
hanging out in that hot tub with Bill Maher all the time. It sounds like you got a God-shaped hole in your heart.
What the hell are you talking about?
Okay, now you can't blame me for where this has gone,
No,
right?
I can't. No.
But I'm going to go with it. How would you even begin to prove the existence of a God?
Well, I don't know because I don't have the powers of a scientist. I certainly couldn't prove the existence of the planet Mercury, if that's even a planet anymore. I can't, I can prove anything. I'm just taking their word for it.
Right, and that's what we do. And when you say in your act, I know it's comedy, but Copernicus and Sir Isaac Newton, and they made these glaring errors. But at the time, that was the best evidence available, But who is it that always corrects them? It's science as a community. It's other scientists. It's not just somebody going, no, I got this idea. It's actually, I mean, maybe that's how it starts, but then they actually have to set out and study it and prove it.
Yes.
So it's other scientists that correct scientists.
I'm all for science.
Okay. Good.
Because I want them to make things that'll make me live longer and stuff, But I would really like I would like eternal life. I would like some proof, one way or the other, you know, if prove it that God doesn't exist, I don't care what you prove. Like, at least prove one of them. But try to work on the only important thing. Certainly everyone can agree that's the most important thing, whether or not we're alone, or whether or not we're taken care of. You know, certainly anyone in their right mind would agree that's the most important question to answer.
You mean for an afterlife?
Not necessarily for an afterlife, but that would also be good. But without God, there's no purpose. I don't care what anyone pretends otherwise. But it's highly, highly irrational to say that there's purpose without God, because there simply isn't.
I actually got into an argument on the subway, and the guy quoted the Bible at me. That is not fair. Like, if you get to quote from your favorite book, I should be able to quote from my favorite book, right? He was like, men do not live on bread alone, Matthew 4:4. And it's like, everybody's a little bit magic, Harry Potter, chapter 7. It's not a fair fight, right? One of those books is a classic about a man who has sacrificed himself for the good of the world, and the other is the Bible. Do you know what I'm saying, people?
Roseanne, what are your thoughts on Harrison?
Well, I just love you, Harrison. You're fantastic. And you're real brave. I mean, the stuff you're talking about, Bible jokes, that's some brave.
I disagree. I don't think the Bible joke is brave at all. I think if you're going to take on an entire religion, you should maybe know what you're talking about. I will say this. Of all the religions, I like Judaism and I like Christianity. Maybe it's the way I was brought up. But I do notice, I was thinking about the other day, like, there are some people that believe that, like, man is divine, like kind of a hippie idea, that we are all, like, beautiful creatures. So anyways, I can't believe that, because I know my own heart, and I know that's not true. And then, like, other people believe, like, we're wretched, like the cynics, you know, or the atheists or whatever would believe that we're all just wretched, like nothingness, you know, we're just animals, just creatures. So I can't believe that. That doesn't make any sense, you know, that we're just beasts. So I will say that Christianity has this interesting compromise where we're both divine and wretched, and then there's this middleman, you see, that's the Savior, that through him we can become divine, but we're born wretched. And so it's a very fascinating idea.
Right, but it's not a bad thing to have no purpose. We're born, we die. It was nice.
Though that's fine, but that's not what most atheists proclaim. But no, if that were the case, that would be fine as well. But most atheists proclaim that there can be purpose in life without God.
Well, you make your own purpose, right? Or not, whatever. But you're just here for however long you're here.
Yeah, but I don't believe you can make your own purpose. You know, atheists have this idea that they can't quite resolve within themselves that man is divine, but they can't say divine because that means God. But they believe it. They don't believe they're equal. Man, no man, I don't care what they say, no man believes he's equal to an animal or an insect.
And so, as you can see, there was a lot more to this man than just punchlines and corny jokes. And one last thing that I wanted to mention before I end this short video is the way that Norm Macdonald died. Because he died of cancer, but this I find amazing. You see, he apparently had cancer for 9 years. For the last 9 years, he's been suffering from terminal cancer, but he hasn't told anybody. I mean, he never told the public, you know, none of his fans or anybody knew, but I guess he never even told most of his close family and friends. That's what I'm hearing. And I'm amazed by that. I mean, I just can't imagine. Me personally, you know, I have a hard time keeping my mouth shut, and I'm quick to rely on support, from my friends. And I am just very impressed by the ability of somebody to maintain, a secret like that. And I assume, I don't know, I'm not Norm Macdonald's friend, I didn't know the guy personally. But the only reason that you would do that as a man, that I can reason, would be because you don't want to burden other people with a problem that you perceive as your own to bear. Why make your loved ones worry about something that they have no control over? I'll bet you that's why he kept it a secret. It would be consistent with his personality, because if Norm Macdonald was anything, he was fiercely independent, He was his own guy, and that's what I think everybody loved about him. And I wish I could say that before he died that I prayed for him, I wish I could say that I prayed for him to find the answers to his questions and to be saved. But I didn't. But I should have. But anyways, I can say that I truly hope that, maybe Norm did repent. Maybe he was just really backslidden. I don't know. I do hope that he got his heart right with God. And, it's possible, because if God could save me, then he could save anyone. And so I'm not counting it out, but I'm also not counting on it. And now, in closing, I want to leave you with my favorite classic joke from Norm Macdonald. And I'll be back soon with part 2 of the War on Kids. But in the meantime, listen. I know that this world has gone crazy, but don't forget to laugh.
Now, not all your material comes from the news. Is that right?
No, some of my material my strongest material comes from real life.
Real life?
Like, for instance, today I was driving in a car. Mm-hmm. You were kind enough to bring a car to bring this old chunk of coal here to the studio.
We send cars for our guests, yes.
Yeah, so I got in it, and I get material that way. So my driver.
What do you mean? How do you get material that way? You get in the car, and what happens?
My driver tells me a joke.
The driver we sent to pick you up told you a joke.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell it now on the show.
Yeah, that's how I get a lot of my material.
Okay. Why don't we just have him on next time?
That guy. No, wait till you hear me do it. So the guy, he goes, I say, I'll be the guy.
Okay.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office, all right.
You are correct. A moth goes into a podiatrist's office, and the podiatrist's office says, "What's the problem?" And the moth says, "What's the problem? Where do I begin, man?" He goes, "I go to work for Gregory Olinovich, and all day long I work." Honestly, Doc, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't even know if Gregory Olinovich knows. He only knows that he has power over me, and that seems to bring him happiness. But I don't know. I wake up in a malaise, and I walk here and there. And the podiatrist says, "Oh, yeah?" And the moth goes, "Yes." And he goes, "At night, I sometimes wake up and I turn to some old lady in my bed that's on my arm. A lady that I once loved, Doc. I don't know where to turn to. My youngest, Alexandria. She fell in the cold of last year. The cold took her down, as it did many of us. And my other boy, and this is the hardest pill to swallow, Doc. My other boy, Gregorio Ivanilidovich. I no longer love him. As much as it pains me to say, when I look in his eyes, all I see is the same cowardice that I catch when I take a glimpse of my own face in the mirror. If only the cowardice was stronger, then perhaps I could bring myself to reach over to that cocked and loaded gun that lays on the bedside behind me and end this hellish facade once and for all.
How long a drive was this? Do you live in the valley? Where do you live? Please, sorry.
He says, Doc, sometimes I feel like a spider, even though I'm a moth, just barely hanging on to my web with an everlasting fire underneath me. I'm not feeling good. And so the doctor says, Moth, man, you're troubled. But you should be seeing a psychiatrist. Why on earth did you come here? And then the moth said, because the light was on.
My congratulations to anyone who stuck it through to the end. So Norm. We're pretty much out of time.